Here's why there are no mega container ships heading to the US. Welcome to the latest issue of Top Secret. Have you ever imagined steel giants gliding across the waves, carrying tens of thousands of containers? Silently retreating from the American coastline, as if concealing an unspeakable horror within? While conquering vast territories across Asia and Europe, why was this mighty nation left behind? Are America's ports truly buckling under their might, or is a grander conspiracy lurking beneath the ocean waves? Ocean maps and the mysteries of giant ships. If you've ever sat in front of your computer screen and scrolled through online maps that track the journey of ships across the ocean in real time, you will see a whole vibrant world unfold before your eyes. The shimmering dots of light on the screen, each one representing a ship cutting through the waves across the vast ocean. Each color corresponds to a different type of vessel, ranging from giant oil tankers and small fishing boats to luxurious yachts. But if you filter out all other types of ships, leaving only container ships, that picture suddenly becomes sparse. They appeared as thick as ants, sprawling everywhere from Europe to Asia, from North America to South America. As if spreading to every corner of the world map, they are likened to the lifeblood of global trade, circulating goods from every corner of the world to every destination. But things started to get strange and piqued even more curiosity when another experiment was conducted. Only display ships with a capacity of 16,000 containers or more. Surprisingly, some areas on the map suddenly became blank. These massive vessels are now only concentrated in Asia and Europe, while on both coasts of the Americas, there is no sign of them. This inevitably leads one to wonder, why did those colossal creatures vanish completely from such a vast land? To help you visualize more easily, imagine yourself sitting by a window, leisurely sipping a hot cup of tea. Gazing out at the vast ocean, one suddenly reflects on how humanity has transformed the way goods are transported over the decades. Container ships were not always as massive and modern as the images we see today. In the mid-1950s, they were merely ordinary cargo ships, converted from old oil tankers or empty freighters. Everything began to change when a man named Malcolm McLean came up with a bold idea. He invented the standard shipping container, a simple metal box that nonetheless possessed the power to transform the entire world's transportation system. The first ship, named IUX, was originally an old T2 tanker, which he converted to carry 58 containers from Newark, New Jersey to Houston, Texas. The trip was not only a brilliant success but also created a major impact, ushering in a completely new era for the freight transport industry. From handling just a few dozen containers per voyage, the ship's cargo volume quickly increased to between 500 and 800 containers. In the following years, this number increased dramatically, reaching 1,000 and then 2,500 barrels. Entering the 1980s, the emergence of ships capable of carrying 3,000 to 4,500 containers marked a significant leap forward. However, that size is not a matter of chance or arbitrarily determined. They are constrained by a factor that the entire global transportation industry must consider: the Panama Canal, the vital artery connecting the two oceans. The story of container ships is not merely about transportation vessels. At its core, it is an ode to humanity's relentless creativity. From Malcolm McLean's simple idea, the maritime shipping industry underwent a remarkable transformation. The small ships of the past have now been replaced by colossal machines, gliding across the ocean to carry thousands of containers. But why doesn't the United States have super ships? To find the answer, one must delve deeply into history, infrastructure systems, and even the limits that nature places on human ambition. So what happened that made everything so strange like this? The Panama Canal and its invisible constraints. The Panama Canal is far more than just a man-made waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It is a symbol of human intelligence, yet it has also historically been a major barrier in the global transportation industry. In the early days of container shipping, every vessel had to adhere to an unchangeable standard called Panamax. This standard specifies vessel dimensions with a maximum width of 32 meters, a maximum length of 294 meters, and a draft depth submerged underwater of approximately 12 meters. Exceeding these numbers, the vessel will be unable to pass through the narrow locked chambers of the canal. To circumvent the southern tip of South America, they were forced to undertake an extremely long journey, which not only added weeks of travel time but also consumed a massive amount of fuel. Not only the length and width, but the ship's height is also limited by the America's Bridge spanning the canal, while also being dependent on the water depth and the fixed dimensions of the lock chambers. Container ships, military vessels, and even passenger ships are designed to precisely fit these technical specifications. It seems the entire world of transportation must bow before a small but mighty canal. But the world never stops moving, driving an unstoppable tidal wave of growing demand for goods transportation. People began dreaming of ships that could break free from the old limitations of Panamax, calling them post-Panamax. These ships also faced considerable risks and challenges during their construction. Due to their deeper draft, they encountered difficulties navigating into shallow water ports. The port infrastructure, from piers to terminals, still cannot accommodate the new generation of giant container ships. Shipping routes are also forced to change, steering clear of the Panama Canal in search of alternative pathways. However, the allure of the global market is too great to resist. By the year 2000, ships with a capacity of up to 8,000 containers were sailing across the oceans, transporting goods from one continent to another. After 2006, the third generation of post-Panamax container ships emerged, named Very Large Container Ships, VLCS, with a capacity to carry between 11,000 and 14,500 containers. With a width of up to 22 container rows and a draft deeper than 15 meters, these ships require ports to have super heavy cranes, spacious terminals, and deep water channels. The number of ports capable of accommodating these ships is not large, particularly those located at river mouths or in shallow waters. People are gradually realizing that these massive ships are not just a solution, but they themselves can become a serious problem. But the greed of transporting more goods and earning more money has driven them into an endless race. The story of the Panama Canal is not merely one of engineering and scale, but also a testament to human will in the face of nature's limits and the quest to overcome them. From the small Panamax vessels, perfectly fitted to the locks, to the colossal post-Panamax giants that defy all limits. The transportation industry has undergone a long journey of development with profound changes. But even if the canal is widened to accommodate larger ships, one question remains. Why can't the very largest superships dock in America? To answer this question, we need to broaden our perspective by considering the oceans, maritime routes, and even potential dangers posed by nature. The rise of superships and the dream of economic development. Given the ever-increasing demand for cargo transportation, humanity cannot allow the Panama Canal to remain a bottleneck forever. In 2007, an ambitious expansion project was launched to renovate the boat bays in order to accommodate larger ships. After numerous delays and significant expenditure of resources and effort, the project was officially inaugurated on June 26, 2016, allowing for the passage of ships. The canal can now accommodate Panamax-sized vessels with maximum dimensions of up to 427 meters in length, 55 meters in width, and a draft of 18 meters. This change paves the way for ultra-large container vessels, with a capacity of 18,000 to 25,000 containers, to operate. The technology to build these ships is not the major challenge, but operating them profitably is the key issue, requiring the entire maritime shipping industry to adapt. On August 14, 2021, the vessel EVS departed from Yantian Port in China carrying 21,710 containers on deck, setting a new world record for the number of containers transported in a single shipment. With a length of 400 meters and a width of 67 meters, this is truly a giant machine gliding across the sea. Currently, more than 50 ships with a capacity of over 21,000 containers are in operation, the majority of which were newly built within the last 5 years, and shipyards are continuously producing new vessels. To put their size into perspective, you can compare them to the nearly 400-meter-long MSC Irene, equivalent to the height of New York's Empire State Building if laid on its side. Its width is approximately 61 meters, even greater than that of that famous building. That number of containers is equivalent to the number of visitors to the Empire State Building Observatory over a 2-day period. These vessels are not only large in scale but also deliver outstanding economic efficiency, exactly as expected by shipping companies. Following the 2008 economic crisis, freight shipping rates plummeted, while operational costs such as fuel, labor, and maintenance continually escalated. Businesses found themselves in a situation of severely declining profits, even experiencing periods of heavy losses. This forced them to find every possible way to cut costs while still having to maintain revenue. Container mega ships have become the optimal solution, as they can transport more containers per voyage, helping to reduce costs per unit of cargo. Moreover, they consume less fuel per container, while fuel accounts for up to 60% of a ship's total operating costs. Shipping companies that own these massive vessels have a clear competitive advantage, enabling them to offer lower freight rates and attract an increasing number of customers to their seaports. Moreover, a single ship carrying 10,000 containers would require less steel and a smaller crew than two smaller ships carrying 5,000 containers each, resulting in significant additional cost savings. But if they are truly that effective, why haven't these mega ships appeared in America? The answer to this problem lies in barriers that few could anticipate. The United States is facing the reality that ultra-large container ships often avoid docking at its ports. The primary reason stems from infrastructure barriers. The port system lacks the necessary depth and dredging capacity to accommodate these massive vessels. Additionally, the road and rail infrastructure connecting the ports to the mainland is outdated, which easily leads to congestion, slows down the cargo handling process, and drives up logistics costs. These limitations make shipping companies hesitant, directly impacting the competitiveness of the U.S. economy. The primary reason why supersized ships cannot dock at American ports lies precisely in the port infrastructure itself. Most ports here are not wide or deep enough to accommodate ships carrying more than 20,000 containers. They sat too deep in the water, sometimes touching the bottom and penetrating the mud rather than floating freely. Only on rare occasions, such as in April 2020, does the Port of Auckland receive ships carrying as many as 19,000 containers, like the MSC Anna. However, this is merely a rare exception, as a series of previously cancelled shipments had left a large number of empty containers needing to be handled in the Southern California area. Normally, the weighbridge at my port is not high enough to unload cargo from the top position. Neither railways nor trucks are capable of transporting the enormous volume of goods from a ship of that size. It is entirely possible to upgrade ports. However, dredging the seabed to expand shipping channels causes severe damage to the marine ecosystem. Negative impacts on fisheries operations and the livelihoods of local communities in the area. Not to mention, a super large ship typically takes 36 to 48 hours just to unload its cargo. This situation causes even more severe congestion, while smaller boats only need 7 to 30 hours to complete the journey. Upgrading just one port is pointless, since hardly any ships would come and go. To thoroughly resolve the issue, both the east and west coasts of America must be modernized in a synchronized manner. But the enormous cost makes people hesitate. The second reason relates to the transportation route. Supertankers are highly vulnerable when encountering severe storms, especially when crossing the Pacific Ocean, where fierce waves and powerful winds constantly rage, as if trying to devour everything. Medium-sized container ships can sometimes lose hundreds of containers due to the impact of large waves. Large vessels also face the risk of capsizing due to the phenomenon of rolling. The ship is so long that when it encounters a series of large consecutive waves, its midsection can be lifted and rest on the crest of a wave. While the nose and tail of the aircraft were still suspended in the air, it created an extremely dangerous angle of tilt. Several ships narrowly escaped disaster, all because they were unable to withstand the terrifying power of nature. Additionally, the overpass system in the U.S. also poses a significant obstacle. Many bridges, such as the Bayonne Bridge in New York, have a modest height, making it difficult for ultra-large and ultra-heavy ships to pass without touching the bridge. In 2021, thanks to a $1.7 billion bridge elevation project, the 16,000 container ship CMA-CGM Marco Polo was finally able to dock on the East Coast. However, not every bridge can be upgraded so easily. The 2024 collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore is a heartbreaking testament to how a bridge can fall simply from being struck by a modern cargo ship. Although it had previously met safety standards, the aging bridges in the U.S. were not designed to withstand ships that are twice the size of those from the era when they were built. Therefore, ultra-large container ships typically operate only on the route between Asia and Europe, where there are seaports with sufficient water depth to accommodate them. This route is less risky and the infrastructure is ready to welcome us. However, the cause lies not only in the seaports and transportation routes, but also in the very way Americans perceive the problem. While countries in Europe and Asia continuously invest in upgrades to accommodate larger ships, the United States has been slow to adapt to this trend. In 2021, a severe container shortage forced more than 100 cargo ships to wait offshore of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Truck drivers and warehouse workers are both in short supply, partly due to the impact of the pandemic. The discharge of waste from waiting ships has caused severe pollution, making the situation worse. Major corporations like Walmart or FedEx are forced to step in to provide support, but these are only temporary measures, not sustainable long-term solutions. Meanwhile, in Europe, new ports like London Gateway are being built with crane systems reaching heights of 138 meters. With a capacity of up to 3.5 million containers per year, the new port demonstrates an impressive scale, while the US is still struggling with its outdated and obsolete infrastructure system. The reason ultra-large vessels do not call at US ports is not solely due to limitations in port size or bridge clearance, but more importantly, stems from inadequate preparation to keep pace with global maritime transport trends. Under the strategic vision and long-term outlook for the future, currently, more than 186 MGX-24 vessels are in operation worldwide, a figure that accounts for nearly half of the global container fleet. They are approximately 400 meters in length, 61 meters in width, and appear to have reached the maximum size limit. There are multiple reasons why people no longer build larger ships. First, regarding physical limitations, stacking containers too high will crush the packages at the bottom under the weight. The fixed system on board only has the capacity to withstand up to a certain limit. Rising oil prices also significantly increase the operating costs of large ships, as they require a massive amount of fuel to move. Not to mention, to accommodate ships that far exceed the current scale in size. Port infrastructure must be comprehensively upgraded, from dredging deeper channels and constructing higher wharves, to developing a robust inland transportation system. The cost of this change is so high that no one dares to take the risk when the economic benefits are no longer proportionate. The difference in operating costs between a 23,000 container ship and a 20,000 container ship is only about 1%. Therefore, it was deemed unnecessary to increase the size any further. The incidents at sea have made this even more certain. In 2021, the incident where the Ever Given was stuck for 6 days in the Suez Canal caused a global supply chain disruption, demonstrating that larger ships are not always the optimal solution. In 2022, the Ever Forward encountered an even more serious incident when it ran aground in the Chesapeake Bay for a month shortly after departing the port of Baltimore. After 2 failed attempts, the 395-meter-long vessel carrying 5,000 containers was finally successfully rescued by deploying a fleet of supporting barges, combined with utilizing the high tide and dredging the seabed. Fortunately, this incident did not cause as severe damage as the Ever Given case, but it demonstrated